So welcome, I'm Shannon Mason Young. I'm the Northwest Regional Literacy Consultant. And welcome to our session, Data and Logic or Emotional Connection, How Storytelling with Both Can Advance Your Mission. Wisconsin Literacy is a nonprofit statewide coalition of 81 literacy agencies. We strengthen literacy statewide through expert trainings, personalized consultations, health literacy, workforce connections, and advocacy. And I'm so pleased to introduce our presenter today, Melissa Quinn. Melissa is a lifelong storyteller through her career work in mission-driven, non-for-profit healthcare systems, the global shipbuilding industry, professional sports, local news, and community partnerships and sponsorships. First as a journalist and then as a brand, marketing, and communications leader for organizations such as Bellin Health, SSM Health, and Fincantieri Marine Group. And Melissa has done so much. She has launched more than 500 successful omni-channel campaigns across television, digital, billboard, radio, print, social, video, and more. Every audience and more for every audience imaginable. And we're so happy she currently serves as a member of the Wisconsin Literacy Board of Directors. And she also mentors young rising leaders in the marketing and community professions. So welcome, Melissa. And we're very excited for you to share with us your presentation.
There we go. How about that?
Now we see your slides.
Thank you. Perfect. Okay, that's where we want to be. So, how can both advance our mission, or is one better than the other? What about data and logic? Is that more compelling? Or what about our emotional connection, people? This is a constant question I get. When I am working with partners, when I'm working with fellow nonprofit organizations, whether they're healthcare or a completely different industry. And it all starts with what is storytelling exactly? So there's a lot of definitions of storytelling, right? But storytelling does a great job of placing us inside of a situation or environment. We feel the words and the sounds and the visuals and the other senses. We feel that they're occurring around us. Storytelling can be highly emotional. Through storytelling, people tend to develop a connection quickly, whether it's to people in the story, to the content, to the cause that it's talking about. And really great storytelling that can make an impression that lasts over a long period of time. You can hear a story and you can remember something relevant from that story years later, and it comes back to you, or it comes up in different ways down the road to help you in causes that you maybe didn't believe when you heard it for the first time how it could help. So this is why brands, and when I talk about a brand, I really just mean the identity of an organization, a group, or a company that wants to share what it's doing with others. That's what really a brand means. So sometimes the word brand feels very corporate speak to people. And I say, if you don't like the word brand, replace it with something else. Replace it with our family, our team, our group, our organization. And really, storytelling can be one of our most powerful tools, no matter what type of group we are. And all the things that you see here with emotions that's kind of written on here, you definitely feel those. When we use data and when it's sourced, it can be irrefutable. So remember that as well. Sometimes storytelling presents information that provides irrefutable evidence about something. So when we have information sharing, or whether even we have misinformation sharing, sourced data can do very good things to educate individuals and to convince them too. So storytelling can be a combination of emotional and data-driven information. And I think sometimes we start at the point of I've always felt that I can be convincing to others if I use data and logic, right? So I put a bunch of quotes that are sort of from across history where people really did make the case as to why data visualization or why irrefutable evidence really did assist them or others along the way in their own journeys, whether they were writers, authors, whether they were educators, as you can see by some of the quotes here. So it depends on, what kind of part of your brain you're using, but mathematicians, data and logic, right? That's what many of our professions have used as part of the tools in their toolkit. Facts, right? We've heard so many times, give me the facts, right? Tell me how I can understand the world, and help me understand it through data and numbers. These are common. This is part of the fiber of our being, right? And so we are often drawn to saying, if I have a problem to solve, can I solve it by sharing data and logic with people? And can I convince them of what I am trying to share and the point that I'm trying to make by using it? So think about that. What are the last times in the last year you have used data and logic to make your case, whether it was to one person or a small group or an entire community, right? Well, I'm going to give you a little case study here for just a couple of minutes about how we, when I was working at Bellin Health, how we really felt that this could assist us in a challenge that we had. So put ourselves back into the year of 2021, going into 2022. It was COVID-19, right? That was what was impacting our lives at the time. And Bellin Health, where I worked, was located in and is located in the Green Bay area, and it goes south a little bit, and it goes a little bit into the central part of the state, and it goes all the way up to Marquette, Michigan. So the northeast part of Wisconsin and the upper Michigan, UP. And we noticed that we really needed to do something about the fact that our vaccination rates for COVID-19 and flu and other things were very, very low in our rural areas, but also in some of our cities. And we applied for a grant and we received that grant. And a lot of that grant involved the ability for us to try to convince individuals who had not otherwise been interested or had felt that it wasn't the right time or right for them to receive some of these vaccines, one or more of them. So we knew that this wasn't an audience that was the overachievers, the first to sign up for these types of things, the first to maybe be convinced by data or logic or emotion that this was important for them and their families to consider. We knew that we were going to be up against an audience that up to this point had not felt it important to receive these vaccinations, or maybe were scared, or maybe had information that led them to believe that it was actually worse to get the vaccination than to not. So you can see a little bit of the outline of the grant, just kind of the basics of what we needed to do. And it was just to the state of Wisconsin. Now, that doesn't mean that we didn't think about how we were going to market and do paid marketing in the UP. We did that too. But we were going to use our grant dollars in the areas that we were allowed to. But we needed a campaign, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy. And at first we thought data and logic was totally gonna do it, right? We're going to convince people. And as we learned a little bit more and did more research into how we might be successful with this information sharing, the information started to point to a different direction. We weren't sure anymore whether data and logic was going to get the job done. We started to understand that nudging people might be better than hitting them over the head with information and evidence, or statistics or data. We understood that persuasion started with agreement. How can we get individuals to agree to a part, or to maybe not the data or logic, but the emotion related to COVID-19 and to illness, to predisposing people with compromised immune systems? Their own family might have a compromised immune system. You have people in your family of all ages, right? You've got really young. You may have those who are wise and getting on in age, where this this virus could hurt them more than others. And so we repositioned what we thought, because we wanted to be effective. So there's a great example in here that says, if you want to say yes to a European vacation, you have to agree to a multi-hour flight, right? 8 to 12 hours, if not more, cramped and comfortable aircraft. Um, so there's things that you have to assume and agree with before you're going to do something. And so we rethought our initial idea and said, maybe we need people to say yes and agree to being healthy over the holidays so they can see their family. Okay. So I want to see my grandchild over the holidays. I don't want to get a call from my daughter who says, Mom, Dad, I'm not really sure we're going to invite you to Christmas this year. I am vaccinating my family, and I am being careful. And anyone who's not vaccinated, we're going to distance from them this holiday season. That is a powerful thought. What? I might not be able to see you like I do every year this Christmas. Of course, I want to see the grandkids. Of course, I want to be with you. So these were some of the thoughts that we eventually moved to and shifted to, because we needed to be effective at encouraging additional individuals to be willing to get this vaccine. The life experiences are what's so important. So in everything we do, whether it's just calling it information sharing, or whether you're trying to make a case and convince, or whether you're actually doing a real campaign, there's three parts, or there can be three parts to your messaging strategy. And so we think about these three parts each time. So the rational. We want the audience to know that many of the life experiences they cherish are at risk if they get sick. Okay, that's the rational part of us. Then there's the dogmatic. We wanted the audience to think and believe that vaccines help ensure that they will be able to live and love fully that holiday season, into 2022 and beyond. And then there was the emotional part. We knew that the audience needed to feel drawn to enabling and empowering those life experiences that they desire, right? They want to have control over what they can feel and what they can do related to those feelings. And so that was really important to us to have this three-pronged messaging strategy for the campaign. So here's how some of it turned out, okay? And some of the sentiment was give them the best shot at a healthy future. So some of the images that you would see with your family, powerful, right? Sometimes you can imagine that little baby being, yours, or your sisters, or your brothers, or your daughters, your sons, right? Or friends. We celebrate holidays with friends too. We want to be with them too. And we turned this into everything you can think of, whether it was video, mobile phone, digital marketing, print, and I will attempt to play a little bit of the audio from some of the radio. Radio is pretty powerful too.
ice cream cones that are too big to handle, snow forts and sand castles, sleepovers at Grandma's. There are 1,000 moments of greatness in every child's life, and Bellin Health is here to give them their best shot at living every minute to the fullest. Give your kids their best shots. Call your local Bellin Health clinic to schedule childhood vaccines, and we'll make it super easy for you.
And here's one more.
Taking naps with the dog. Forts built from boxes and blankets. The last day of every school year. There are 1,000 moments of greatness in every child's life, and Bellin Health is here to give them their best shot at living every minute to the fullest. Give your kids their best shots. Call your local Bellin Health clinic to schedule childhood vaccines, and we'll make it super easy for you.
We also made sure that we had some fun with this. It doesn't have to be scary. We had drive-through flu clinics where you didn't have to get out of your car. You came to a decorated parking lot and people with costumes on, and the whole team with trick-or-treat candy and toys, and you got to bring the whole family, and you maybe got your flu shot. If you wanted your COVID vaccine, you could get that too. And you got to trick-or-treat with us at many of our clinics. And this went over very, very well. It was a way for people to understand that we cared about them personally and that we wanted to make sure that they had an experience that was positive, and we were willing to go all out for it. So this, I think, is a concept that can take some of the fear away from it and also normalize the experience. So put yourself in the shoes of someone who maybe felt very strongly for one reason or another that vaccination was not good for them. And this is years of thinking this, okay? And to convince these types of individuals that for whatever reason did not feel comfortable doing this, how can we make sure that they do if they're taking the brave move to do it for the first time? So this is what we needed to make sure we provided. Imagery that they could relate to, imagery that was right for the season, right? It was winter. And really just making sure that people knew that we understood, these are individuals that are active many times. They're going out in the UP and snowmobiling. They're going out in cross-country skiing. You want to be able to have your health, and you want to have the lung capacity to breathe. And so we really played on some of these words to try to make sure that people felt safe and secure and taken care of when they were invited to maybe do something that they had not considered before. I am going to move into a section where I'm going to let somebody else, if you've ever come across Simon Sinek, he talks a lot about things that we can do personally as well as from a business standpoint to succeed. And he does a lot of motivational speaking. He does a lot of national speaking, and he's on the internet, of course, on YouTube. And I'm going to play 2 videos that I've selected that speak to, do we use data and logic? Do we provide an emotional connection? He had some thoughts on this that I thought were really neat and fascinating. And so there might be an ad before that I can then press skip, but the way YouTube is going right now is gone are the days where you can't get served up an ad before you actually get to watch the video. So if there's a teeny tiny ad before it, just wait, hang tight. I'll press skip and we'll try to watch it, okay?
We are not rational as much as people like to think we are. We're not. Even if you're an engineer, we're still emotional. We make decisions out of fear and ego and ambition and insecurity and all these things. And the part of the brain that controls our emotions is called the limbic brain. But that part of the brain doesn't control language. It also controls all human behavior, by the way. So it controls our emotions and behavior, but it doesn't control language, which is why it's difficult to put our emotions into words. We often use analogies and metaphors. It's like this. It's like I'm on a train and there's no end to the track, you know? It's also why we sometimes struggle to explain our decisions. I don't know. It just felt right, right? I just trusted my gut. Oh, I should have trusted my gut, right? Well, there's no part of your stomach that makes decisions. It's this limbic brain. The neocortex is our rational part of our brain that's responsible for rational analytical thinking and language, but it's not responsible for behavior. And so when you make a rational case for why, it actually doesn't work because it's rational. When you make an emotional case for why, that's when you create human connection. And the easier way to understand that is that the why has nothing to do with the job. The job is the rational part. The job is the tactical part. The job is the thing that we can look at and count metrics, but that's not the essence of human connection, right? So by saying family first, and then mission, because mission is the job, the flying is the job, the war fighting is the job, but it's something higher. It's the deep bond that is what creates where the why exists. So you're 100% right. And it can be ideological, and it can be family, it can be human, it can be anything, but it has to live on a little higher than the job. And I see this mistake done a lot of times by a lot of leaders, which is they attempt to explain the why with a rational explanation or just a re-articulation of the job. So our why is to build the best quality product at the highest quality value. Like, nope, that's not it. Our why is to fly planes better than, nope, that's not it, right? The why is take care of the person to the left of you and to the right of you. And if we do that, we'll fly planes better than anybody else. I mean, it's that kind of thing. And people who resonate with that cause will find themselves drawn to that organization.
Pretty fascinating. So here's one more from him. And this one's a little bit more about storytelling.
The more you can connect it to a real human being, the more you will feel it. And I'll prove it to you. Stalin said, the death of one man is a tragedy and the death of a million is a statistic, right? So I'll tell you two stories, both are true. Right now, what we are witnessing in Europe is a horrible event of this war in Ukraine. And we see a proud people standing up to defend themselves against this oppressive regime that is invading their country unnecessarily. And the conservative estimates now are, I think the last one I read was about, 5,000 men and women killed rising up against this despotic regime, right? That's a fact. Those are numbers. Now let me tell you another story. I have a friend named Cami who lives in San Clemente, California, and she was driving home from work one day, and as she turned the corner, she came upon a car accident that had just happened, where a 17-year-old driver had hit an 18-year-old pedestrian. And this 18-year-old girl was lying on the street, her leg at a 90-degree angle, unconscious, and the ambulances hadn't arrived yet. Cami pulled her car over and got out and sat with the girl and just sat with her until the paramedics arrived. Eventually the paramedics arrived and took her away. And a few days later, she was curious what happened to that girl. She went online onto the blotter and found out that 18-year-old girl had died. Okay, what made you feel more? Thousands of people who died standing up against a oppressive regime to defend their lifestyle and their democracy? Or one 18-year-old girl who got hit by a car in California? That's my point, which is when you tell a story about a specific person, you feel it way more than telling statistics of all the people you helped or all the homes you've sold. I don't care about how many homes you've sold or how many families you've helped. Tell me about the one you remember. That's the one you tell. And when somebody says, "What can you do for me?" I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years, and I have a greater knowledge of this neighborhood than anybody else, and I've sold more houses, and I'll get you the best deal. And then you get a cynical bastard like me who goes, "Your business model encourages you not to get me the best deal." I mean, that's the way I think. I apologize because you want to keep the price up because that's what makes you more money. Like, I know, like, I get it, right? It's like therapists don't want to get you better because they get paid by the hour. If they did flat fee, we'd all be fine. But if you walk in and say, and somebody says, why should I do business with you, right? You'd be like, 3 years ago, I met this family, the Joneses. Oh, what a wonderful couple. 2 kids, Lucy and George, and just the best. And you tell a story about what you got to know about them and what they were looking for and how you spent the time with them. And people will relate their experience to the Joneses, not to the 55 houses you've sold or the 30 years you've been in business, because I don't care. I just need one. And so the more you can tell a specific story, the more people can feel it.
So that is a really good segue into, how do we do this? How do we tell stories in an easy way? We don't have a lot of time. We are all pressed for time and resources and people, right? So I'm going to get into that into the next section. First, I'm going to let you think about any questions you have or just comments about how some of this first part of the presentation made you feel. So hearing that case study about the COVID-19 vaccination campaigns and our need as a health organization to get more people vaccinated and what we were up against and how we sifted and winnowed through the information to figure out how we could be more successful with that challenge. And then some of the things that Simon said, no pun intended, right? As Simon says, but the power of the story of one. I'll start us off with one of the questions, and then please think of others, or even if you just want to make a comment because of some things that you were feeling. We're going to get to you in about 60 seconds. But right now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about a question that I think is going to come up, and that is the fear of featuring individuals or families by name or by image in our storytelling. It is a challenge. Many are fearful of doing it. Many organizations are fearful of doing it. It is something that can present itself as a challenge. Are we putting anyone in harm's way by featuring them? Is it worth it? Is it really worth it to tell the story, a real story of individuals? And I think over time, I have thought about this in many different industries I've worked in, and when I've worked in public relations, specifically when I've worked in internal communications, when I've worked in marketing. And no matter how difficult it is to weigh the decision of whether we feature individuals, I do come back to some of these Simon videos that compel me to at least try to do that. Sometimes I will shield the names. We will use, for the sake of this story, this is Diane and Jamie. Those might not be their real names, but we can use that in the storytelling. To completely shy away from all pictures or imagery, that prevents us from developing that emotional connection. So I know it can be a challenge right now in all of our organizations to weigh the pros and cons of featuring people, imagery of people, imagery of our programs and services, imagery of our help, and names. But I know that when it is not, when that story is not told, the ability for us to be successful at the human connection, it can be difficult. And to get to people can be more difficult if we're not able to include those things. So safety first and protecting our people first, absolutely. But I have tried to find ways and workarounds to still contain real images of people, to ask for their permission for them, and to, if I need to use fake names, but to be honest about it. For the purposes of the story, we are calling these individuals and then list some names. So just one thing to think about as we all navigate the waters of these types of concerns and issues. For you, what did you see in the first part of this presentation? What thoughts or takeaways did you have, or do you have questions right now?
Feel free to put them in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and ask your question. Ashley.
Sure, it's more of a comment, Melissa, in terms of the story that Simon, obviously profiled, and I put the story of one in the chat, but I think your, or I should say Bellen's marketing campaign really played into that in terms of the, especially the audio you shared with, specific memories or, traditions or, sleepovers at grandma's, those are very, to me, very personal images and phrases versus, remember when you went to, or going to Disneyland, or, something that's a little more far out. So I think both of those connected, and certainly at events that we hold and that I've attended, when you've got, for instance, the director of the organization talking about the statistics and, what they've done the past year. And that's impressive. And that, I do want to know that. But when the clients or the students come up and speak and share their personal stories, that's when you can hear a pin drop. And that's where, your heart is really grabbed, because this is why you do what you do and why I do what I do. So, yeah, just wanted to comment on that.
That's great, Ashley. I think you bring up a good point of, if it touches you and you remember it and you feel it, you know that might be the effect that others have too. So you know it will be successful, right? Because it has made an impression on you, or the story resonated with you, and it will then subsequently probably resonate with others. So I think that's a great point. Trust your instinct, maybe trust your gut, and keep it relatable. Well, that's great, Ashley. Very successful.
Hey, Melissa. One of the pieces that I thought resonated with me during this first part is that I remember when I was working at some of my previous positions, we started off graduating 20 people. All of a sudden, we're up to 100 people, 150, 200 people. And it didn't really make, a lot of the people were looking at us and like, well, why, more. And the individuals got lost in that process. So I think it's really important that we can tell data, tell that stuff, but then bringing it back to the person. So I liked that quote inside of there about how if one person dies, it's a tragedy. That truly is the case sometimes when you're going from that smaller organization to a larger one, keeping that realistic. And real quick, one of the ways that I did that was I had every one of the students sign a little brick at my last organization, and we made a Cream City brick wall of all the graduates. So then that way you could see the overall impact, but then the individuals' names were signed on it too, so people could remember that each one of these have a unique story. So I thought that was really impactful. Thank you for sharing.
Wow, I love that idea, Jake. That is neat. That would be a visual that people would see. We can tell you all the statistics in the world, but look at this wall we built together. Look at the people. Go look at the names. Those are some examples of things that give people the goosebumps and the chills, right? So I think and celebrating those wins. And I think so that's a great segue into the next part of this presentation. And I think that, how can we do this easily? We don't always have a lot of time. We don't always have the resources we need to make some giant campaign about something, but we do want to be successful at drawing people in, serving people, finding volunteers, making our program successful, finding new donors. We want to do all these things. And I'm going to show you today how to do it as easily as I can. Okay, and I'm going to give you the tools and resources to help you. So not only will you get this presentation, access to it after this, but you're going to get some templates in Word documents to help you along that will literally take you step by step, where you can literally take the items and the words and you can type right over them and get right to it to try to tell your story. So there are some amazing stories being told by all of the chapters throughout the state and all nonprofits that we partner with and that are represented here today on this call. Whether you're connected with Wisconsin Literacy and Wisconsin Health Literacy formally, sort of as a chapter, or whether you are a nonprofit that has a different mission but partners towards the same types of goals and serves our communities, this next set of tools in your toolkit will be able to help you. Okay. And I do realize that it says 112. It should say 1, 2, 3. I'm going to fix that later. But anyway, there's 3 steps, not 2. and the first thing is define your problem or what you want to achieve. Okay. And think about that deeply. And then we need a solution, right? And it doesn't have to be the solution to end all solutions. It could just be the next step, just the next thing you want to do on your journey long term for that program or for that effort or for that group of individuals you're serving. It's just the next right thing that you want to do. Don't think about accomplishing everything in one fell swoop. Think about what the next right thing to do is for your success of that particular initiative. And then define your audience. And that audience might be multiple audiences, right? You're going to reach different people for different reasons. And you can do that with singular storytelling. You don't necessarily need to create 3 or 4 stories for 3 or 4 audiences. Okay, but to think about those audiences and to help them feel that they are being thought of as part of the process, part of the information sharing. If you think about those audiences as you're doing that singular storytelling, you can probably help them all feel connected. Okay, so I'm going to give you templates that you can literally pull up and start replacing the content inside of them to your liking that help bridge both the emotional connection, but not to negate the success you've had that can be represented in data and logic. So if you look at the right, okay, it's a format that helps and encourages you to read and then literally replace what those words are inside of this format with your content. Okay, and I'm going to go into it a little bit more in the next couple of slides. Okay, but you'll see at the bottom too that we don't negate the data or the information that is also powerful and can impact. After you get that emotional connection on the top through some of the storytelling, the impact by the numbers can mean a little bit more. It can be what Jake was describing with the bricks, with the names on those bricks. It's the visual representation of maybe how much that program has done for the community by the numbers. So you can find a way to marry a little bit of both. And I think that makes people feel good too, right? Like we've done all this work. We don't want to just storytell and not demonstrate the impact we've maybe had on our community. And I'm going to also share a little bit and use an example coming up in the next slides from the Marathon County literacy group that has done a tremendous job in one of its programs that keeps growing and expanding, and it's actually taking shape and different form now in the years after its first successful 20 or so years of the event. And we're going to get into how we can do that together successfully. Okay, so what this does once you sit down with it is it gets you to decide, okay, what do I make for a header? I got to catch people's attention, right? And this doesn't mean that this is a news release. Don't think of this format as this is one thing. This is a print article. This is a news release. No. Don't think about it like that. It looks like that, right? It can be used for that, right? But think about it as something more. Think about it as the foundational template and how you're going to morph and turn it into something different for every different medium we have access to. It's a piece of clay, and you're going to mold it into different shapes, circles, triangles, squares, pentagons, and you're going to mold this foundational information into different channels. Your website, your social media, print, can be morphed into radio. It can be morphed into a presentation that you record fairly easily. I'm going to give you some tricks and tips on how to do that. That can then be presented or shared in meetings online, things like that. So I'm going to help give you the tools today to bring this to life in many different mediums. The things on the left are things you can refer back to help get you there. They are the stepping stones to help build what you see on the right. That catchy header, a subheader that explains it a little bit more. Because if it's a little catchy, people are like, what's this really about? The subheader really explains what this is going to be about. This is the story. And then you set the stage of the story. You bring them in so that they feel immersed in the story, but they're not reading something that's trying to convince them. Nope, they're just in it to enjoy what you're sharing with them. And also to understand the challenge that's being overcome by the work that you're doing, good work that you're doing, the good work that you and your colleagues are doing together, right? That's powerful. You use a quote or two, you tell what good's being done. This is just something to help you kind of step in each stone and easily get to something. If you only have a half an hour to tell this story, my goal is to give you the tools and resources to take just that half an hour and get this all done. So that's why I'm very specific with the formatting that I'm going to give you, okay? People's biggest obstacle to telling stories is say, I can't write. I'm good at writing. What do I write? You sit down and you stare at a blank piece of paper and you go, if I just had a little spark to ignite, I could probably tell this story very well. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is to give you sort of the tools and resources to do that pretty easily. So these are things you can refer back to. You're going to get this presentation. You're going to get all the cheat sheets and all the notes. So you don't have to take feverish notes right now. Don't worry about that. I'm going to walk you through these things so that you can understand, you can come back to all this and have this available to you. So basically what I said before is these are more in-depth descriptions of what you can do, and it will write itself. The whole foundation of your story will write itself once you read through these and do them piece by piece. So you think about something compelling visually, or maybe audio, something that you could hear if you were listening to the story, and you draw that full sensory experience. The quote is formatted a certain way usually, and this is how you do it, right? Quote a person who is involved and you let their words define it. So instead of us saying, our organization did this, let us brag. No. You let the person who is served by you say something about what this did for them, or how big of a challenge they really felt that they were up against, and that the help that they were seeking from you was going to help them overcome that. Okay. And then it is okay to briefly insert a statistic or a data point that makes people's jaws drop. So in this day and age, we are all compelled not to be anything but proactive, right? We've got a crisis on our hands, right? We need there to be adult education. We need adults and children and families to be served by all of us. We cannot sit idly by. So sometimes the statistics of how important this is can come through. Don't give them 5 or 10. Give them one good one, right? That will make them pause and then go, you're right. I need to hear more about what you're doing about this cause. It will compel them to read more. And it will go into the state that your organization is in right now, doing what the work is being done to improve the situation. How does the process work? How do you find or seek out learners? Who is helping? Get into who is helping. Maybe even get some of the tutors or mentors to be involved in the story or share a quote. Tell what is happening right now. Okay. And then go in, and you don't have to do this in a paragraph. This doesn't mean each one of these is a paragraph. It could be one sentence. It could be 2. Keep it simple. That's always the rule, right? Keep it simple. And are there any other partner organizations or state or local agencies that are assisting in this cause? Maybe just briefly mention that. We're not alone. There's something to be said about we're not alone. There's others who are also really working hard at this. It legitimizes the need for a community to respond to the situation. It's all of us. It takes all of us, right? We've heard that. We've said it. It takes all of us. This is that section of your foundational piece that talks about how it takes all of us. Let people know that it takes all of us. And this is how that's happening. And then maybe that partner organization or agency, or, you know, there's power in numbers, right? Let them in on that. Let them tell part of the story with a quote. And then state the outcomes so far, or the outcomes you desire if this has never been tried before, if what you're doing is brand new. Also make it relevant to the audience that's reading it. If somebody's sitting at home, are they an influencer? Can they influence others to take action and then help your specific cause? Let them know what you need from them. And this part, this number 7, this is where you think about the different audiences, right? There might be 3 or 4 audiences you are trying to share this information with. What can each of them do? So you can present more than one call to action, because those different audiences will resonate with that. And some of them will gravitate towards one call to action, and another audience may say, I can help this way. You've given me about 4 ideas here, and I think this one fits best for me. Whatever resonates with them, right? And then end with a powerful quote, that leaves them thinking about how their call to action will continue to make that difference. Okay? So I actually took a real situation and I made a faux. This is fake. This is fictitious. None of this is real. I want to make that clear. We made a fictitious foundational piece. Okay, so on the left, you're going to see something you saw in the last couple slides. It's the same thing. So everything I just went through for you, 1 through 8, same thing, same instructions, same little stepping stones to get you on your path to your format. The part on the right, which I will share with you, the whole thing, everything word for word, is a fake or fictitious story we wrote, but the program is not fake. It is very real. So I want to celebrate and to definitely make sure that everybody knows that we want to acknowledge Marathon County Literacy for doing a great job with a program for Letters to Santa. Okay, and as I go through the next couple of slides, you're going to hear a little bit more about this program. But what we did as we wanted to tell this story is we wanted to pose some thoughts about the story that may present themselves in a way that is more powerful than if you just hear a description of the program. So the headline is Return to Sender. What if you couldn't reach Santa by letter? What if you or your child couldn't write a letter to Santa? Okay. Marathon County Literacy helps families get their letters to the North Pole. And we use a fictitious, in this sense, this is not a real person. You'll notice it's forward dated so that nobody gets the idea that that this happened last December. It doesn't say 2024. I put 2025 on purpose. So you know, oh yeah, that's right. This isn't real. Okay, but we use the idea, and you can read through this. I know it's very small, but you can read through this a little bit more on your own. Okay, Maribel smooths out a piece of white paper with a candy cane border, selects a red marker from the box, and writes, Dear Santa, I can't forget the comma, says Maribel Sanchez, age 8. I'm not sure if Santa minds, but I'm practicing punctuation right now. And I always forget one. Sanchez is one of hundreds of kids in the greater Wasatch area hoping Santa Claus is making his list and checking it twice this month, putting their name on it. But nearly 1,400 families struggle to help their children write letters to Santa because they themselves struggle to correspond via writing. And the story that you can read at your leisure goes on to talk about how the mom used pictures at first, but she wanted to feel the pride of being able to sit down with her daughter and write a letter. So it goes through the format and it takes each stepping stone and it serves those points. And it's fictitious. The numbers aren't real, but the numbers could be real. And sometimes you got to do a little digging, right? And if you want to make the case, you take those numbers and you make them part of the story so that they don't feel like a statistic, but they feel like Anita and Maribel in this situation are part of those numbers. They represent what those numbers mean. And so I'll let you read it a little bit more in depth on your own. And we did want to finish it out with pictures again, fictitious pictures. These are not real. You can use your own imagination. You can figure out how you want to tell the story. Maybe you have a little bit of data at the end that helps just give a quick summary. You know, the more powerful, the better visually too, right? The pictures draw you in. So when you just saw the page on the left at first, you were like, this is going to be a great story, but you didn't see what I just shared with you on the right. Now that I share with you the double paged foundational piece, are you a little bit more drawn in? Do you want to know who's in those pictures? Do you want to see Maribel? Maybe. Maybe Maribel and Anita aren't really their names. Maybe for the purposes of this story, we simply used those names. You can say that flat out. You will still get media coverage for that. Nobody minds. Okay, that is still completely acceptable if you need to shield people's identities. But asking permission maybe for some real pictures to be used, even if it's not the people in the story, but it's part of your program and your initiative, use what you can. Do what you can. Do the best you can. So this foundational piece, like I said, it's not a news release. It can be. It can be turned into that. It's not your social media post, but it can be. It can be turned into that. So I want to now take just a couple of minutes, and we're almost done. We're on like the fourth last slide, to share with you what you can do with these. So powerful for your audiences that you have a connection with, especially if you have a connection with them via your e-newsletters or your emails, or you correspond with them. Take this foundational piece and turn it into a feature story. Put the whole story and the pictures on your website, and then use your email to share just a little bit about the story and entice them to go to your website to learn more, to look at more pictures. Maybe you include one or two. See more pictures on your website. Read the full story. And by the way, video doesn't have to be polished or edited by somebody that does this for a profession or charges money. It has become an equalizer to just use your phone and take raw video and share it. It doesn't matter if it's shaky. It doesn't matter if the audio is perfect or not. The courtesy of the selfie popularity has been great, right? So anything you do is accepted now as okay. It's okay to share a little bit, and it doesn't have to be this big project that you have to have a member of your team sit down and load the video in and edit it and then export it out. No. Think about the easiest way to get content to people and do that. And use a small amount of money. You can use $9. You can use $19. And you can boost some of your social posts to be paid. And there are easy videos on the web showing you how to do this step by step. How to go into Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. And these instructional videos are free, and it shows you how in about 5 minutes to take a small amount of money and boost your post. If this is a really big deal for you guys, and this is a big initiative and you want eyes on this, 9 or 19 or whatever dollars can make a huge difference, because as you know, organic algorithms on social media right now, they're not getting us a lot of eyes. So just these organic posts right now, they're not being seen as much because the creators and the managers of these social media platforms are catering to those who are paying. But the good news is even a little bit goes a long way. So I just want to throw that out there as an idea. And then infuse this content into something existing that you're, okay, we've already got this board of directors meeting coming up, or we've already got this community event coming up. Great. Take this story and infuse it into those presentations. Okay. I know we're going a little bit over time. Stay on if you can. We've got our cross-chapter statewide events. We've got our annual publications. These are all things that you can take this foundational storytelling and share it over and over and over. Share it all year. Share it every year. I don't think anyone's going to get sick of hearing a story like this if it's compelling, okay? Don't think that there's too much fatigue. People can be reminded about these things year after year, and it touches them greatly. It legitimizes how successful you are year over year. And you can, of course, take this and turn it into a news release and an article. Newspapers, magazines, online, they often print what they receive word for word now. Okay, they don't rewrite the story. Sometimes they post it to their community page, word for word. You give it to them, it's on. 3 hours later, it's on their site. Okay, so proofread because you definitely want to make sure that if it's published word for word, that it goes out there with the best grammar and punctuation. Pitch it to local TV stations for a morning news segment. You might have to go on, you might have to drive to the station and appear on the live show in the morning, but you can storytell. And you can take a couple pictures with you, email them to the station, and you can tell that story easily. And you can give papers, stations, online platforms, your photos and your video, as long as you've gotten permission from the individuals who are featured within, do so. And you can give that to them. It can be used for B-roll that can be played over your story as you are maybe live on the air with them. Or some audio, you know, if it's a radio station. So don't be afraid to do this. More and more organizations are very open to this. And then if you do want to present this over and over, don't think you have to show up for, 15 meetings and present it every time. What if you did what I'm doing right now and you recorded it? What if you made a little PowerPoint with a couple of photos, maybe a little bit of copy or statistics or a little bit of the story, not too much. Keep it simple. What can I do in half an hour? Ask yourself that and just prepare a couple of slides, but don't take any more than that. And then do what I'm doing today. Zoom, Microsoft Teams. There are other free downloads out there that you can use. And press that record function, share your screen, record it, and save it. Okay? And use that and air it. Put that video on your website. You've now just created a video without even thinking about it. Put that on a shared folder of some sort where your audiences can access it, or load it onto your website, or share it in social media, right? It's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be anything more than what I did today. And if it was like 2 minutes, right? Not as long as I'm doing today, but like a 2-minute video, right? It could be 30 seconds actually, and it would be just as powerful, right? So think about doing something simple like that, and you can refer back to this. This is a little bit of instructions on how you do it, okay? And then set some goals. This is my second to last slide. Set some goals. What is the maximum benefit I can get by doing just a moderate amount of work? I might have to engage a couple of my fellow colleagues to help me out. I might not be able to do this work. I might have to actually ask somebody else on the team, are you willing to storytell for me? Could you do it a couple times a year for me? If you have very, very big goals, what if one person in your organization told one story once a year? And let's say there were 12 people in your organization. That'd be 12 months that you had a powerful story that you could share with all of your audiences. So on the right, you'll see the questions you can ask yourself to help set these goals. The questions include things like, have I set a schedule to return to this content I created for a second run? Did you know you can run this story second, third, fourth time? That makes the effort that you put into it stretch farther. Do I know any very influential people who could tell this story? Just a couple of very influential people who don't mind sharing this story could get more eyes on it. Okay? So you may know somebody who works in the legislature. You may know the governor. You may know a very influential donor at a business who can share this internally with his employees or her employees. And she has 2,000 employees. She has more. Wow, that could be powerful. That could really open up doors for what your goals are. And then on the right were sort of examples of ways to set those goals. So you go to sort of, match the numbers up, and it helps to guide you as to how to set some of those goals, right? Or what to do to build that plan. You're basically building a sophisticated marketing communications public relations plan to reach people if you follow these steps. So this is a lot, but as you work through it step by step, you'll feel like you have each tool that will guide you along the way. Okay. So I hope you were not actually feverishly taking notes. You were just kind of listening more as an overview and going, great, I'll have access to all of this in the future. But now it's your turn. For those of you who stayed on, and thank you for doing so, if you had an extra 5 minutes and you are willing to, I would love to hear from you right now. What successes have you and your organization achieved that remind you of all this that you'd like to share? Did they use data or logic? Did they use emotion? What went well? What did you learn from your experiences? Or is there anything I missed today that you would like to add that will help others today about this topic?
I think it's a combination, both for me professionally and then also through my volunteer work, of using personal accomplishments of the students, our learners, and as well as graphics. A student who became a new citizen, a photo of them with their certificate and a brief summary of their experience and their accomplishment. Those are those are successful, at least from my experience. You can see the graphic, the photo, and then you can quickly read about this individual's success and dreams achieved. And then, beyond that, on the flip side, as a donor or a supporter, then I want to know how I can help and where, what kind of an impact my donation, my gift will make. So if I can see those things quickly, those are most important. And then, finding out more about numbers served and outcomes, certainly. But, those are the things that catch me right away versus some other media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Was there anything that came to any of your minds where you're like, we've been doing this. We've been doing this. And we just want to, give a kudos or shout out to our team members that have been working hard at successful storytelling.
I'm really happy to hear that we don't have to have necessarily professional videos. I've been videotaping our students, and now I'm encouraged to do more of that. And just obviously, you want them to be somewhat of quality, but that we can just videotape snippets of students or with their tutors, for example, and share those. So that's much more realistic for us and obvious, financially, obviously, and just easier to do if we don't have to schedule professionals to come in.
Absolutely, you can. And feel free to keep them to 30 seconds, 45 seconds. As you know, when people consume information and audio visuals, sometimes that's all the time they have, or attention spans don't go much further than that. So if you have one good 30-second piece of video that shows a brief 30-second engagement between tutor and a student, one shot, that's it. That's all you need to help tell the story and feel empowered, not to feel like it has to be telling multiple parts of the story or components of it, or that you have to tell all of the story in the video. Combining the written and the audio, or you just talking and then showing that little snippet or a photo, is just as powerful.
Thank you.
Melissa, I just put some of the pictures back when I was at my last job. we thought that pictures were always the easiest way, and students wanted to celebrate their stuff. So they would oftentimes sign off on some of the family pictures and things at the graduation ceremonies. So I put a couple of them in there into the chat right now to just say that sometimes it's easier to have a picture tell the story. And if you can get a little quote or a little montage with them speaking of it, you could do B-roll films with just photos you take at the graduations or different celebrations. So I just wanted to show some people some of the pictures we took.
Thank you for doing that, Jay. That's great. Yeah, there was a shout out to Miklet. Absolutely. Kudos to Marathon County Literacy. And I just wanted to thank each of you for already doing with your storytelling. We are all committed to your success. That's why we do things like in terms of events or conferences or presentations to see if we can be helpful and supportive, and we're committed to that. So I know we'll be, making sure that we stay in touch, and you can get in touch with me personally if you need help with anything as well, or if you have questions. Shannon and the team are going to make sure you have my email, and I do answer my email within 1 or 2 business days all the time. So you'll always hear back from me.
Thank you so much, Melissa. This has just been wonderful. And thank you for sharing all these wonderful tips. I'm going to share my screen real quick. We just want to thank everybody for attending. Whoops, I just lost it. Thank you for attending today's session. And we are, we want to thank you. We are going to be sending out a follow-up email. I'll put Melissa's presentation in it, and we will have that information and Melissa's contact information. So as you take a chance to review the information, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to her. And again, we are very thankful for your time today. If you enjoyed this session, join us for the Big Share on Tuesday, March 4th, for a fun day of virtual events and online giving that allows Wisconsin Literacy to offer this types of programming. Our next session will be tomorrow morning at 9:30. It will be AI best practices, prompts, and privacy, and you'll find the link if you haven't registered in the chat. So thank you all, everyone, and have a great afternoon.